Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are talking about customising GA4.
So we did one of our live sessions on this literally yesterday. So I thought it was a good opportunity. These live sessions, by the way, if you are a member of Target Internet, you'll get these. But if you are a newsletter subscriber, targetinternet.com/newsletter, you will get free access to them. And once a month, we do a live session about a topic that's kind of relevant at the moment. It gives people an opportunity to have a chat with us, to ask questions. And we always get a good number of people coming along. So join up for those if you want to. The whole thing about GA4 is, in my opinion, it's not intuitive. There don't seem to be many reports in there, but the customization options are huge. And that's the power in it. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, I am going to do a little cross promotion that's going to surprise a few people. So I got reach out from a podcast saying, do you want to do a cross promotion? And just like people reaching out saying, do you want to, can we be on your podcast for an interview? I get like 20 of these there and I just ignore them. And you get loads. And I'm sure you get loads of them as well. Yeah. And you used to reply to them all as well. You were so polite.
Yeah.
Did you give up eventually?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. So anyway.
I still feel bad about it.
This particular podcast reached out and I clicked through to have a look at it and they've got a big following on their YouTube channel. And immediately, you know, some of those things that I wouldn't normally kind of do. So they're very good. The thumbnails are very YouTube-esque. And it's like how I made 10 million, how I made 50 million from doing this. But I looked at it and I was like, actually, this is pretty cool. So it's not people saying how I built this, dubious website to make this money and scam it out of people and so on. It's like, oh, how I sell candles and made $10 million. Like, what? So it was all these...
Shine a light.
Well, yeah, there you go. Nice. It was lots of interesting business models that you just wouldn't think about. So the podcast is called the Upflip Podcast. They've got a really good YouTube channel as well. We'll put it into the show notes. I'll just search Upflip Podcast. You'll kind of find it. But what it is, they're basically interviewing the business owner. And I liked it because there's an element of what we do, which is like it tells the story warts and all a little bit. It's like I did this and that failed and I was running out of money. So I did this thing instead and I've still got my job going on. And I just like the actual narratives and it was the business owners doing it.
How happy you would be listening to
Yeah, it was really
totally
interesting.
Up your street. Yeah.
It was kind of a therapy session as well. Yeah. But so take a look at it and tell us what you think. So and we'll do some more cross promotions of things that we think are useful. So take a look at Upflip. Right, let's have a look at GA4 and customizing it. First things first, I think it's really important that people understand if they haven't got GA4 set up properly, any Google ads they're doing will not be performing properly, particularly on the Performance Max side of things, okay? So Performance Max is artificial intelligence based in terms of it's using machine learning to work out what works and what doesn't work.
It's a bidding strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you're basically going in and it's mixing up all these different ads, trying them in front of different people and trying to work out what works. But it's optimized. It has to optimize for something. And what it's optimizing for is whatever you've set your conversion events to be in GA4. Mm-hmm. So you can set it, say, okay, I want purchases or I want lead generation, whatever it might be. If you haven't got that set up properly, it can't optimize properly. So that's the first thing. You've got to have these conversion events set up.
It will work without it, but definitely GA4 is set up to really give you the power to give the algorithm the data it needs to make much smarter decisions.
That's exactly it. And the other thing that you can do within GA4 is set up audiences. And then that's basically saying, these are people that purchased or those kind of things. Once you've done that, when you start off a Performance Max campaign, you can give it some signals. And the signal, you can just point at an audience and say, this is the kind of people I want. And what I've seen, it speeds up the machine learning process by about 10 days. So it seems to really, really rocket fuel in terms of how quickly it learns stuff, which is really what you want, because we've spoken about in previous episodes where they're not giving you the same kind of share of voice in terms of your ads showing up until they trust your ads. So you talk about this a lot, Kieran. So
how is it you set those audience signals up?
So when you go through you've got segments basically in GA4, and you can go through and create segments. Once you've done that, you can then point your performance campaign towards one of them as well. So it will list them. It will basically just show you've got this list of them in there as well. And you go in and you can, it's like a drag and drop. You can just select the ones that you want in there. So it's fairly easy. It's in the settings within GA4.
It's so important in the current landscape because pay-per-click, paid search is definitely getting more and more competitive every year. And unless you're giving the algorithms the data they need to make smarter choices, you're just not going to be able to scale. Like, it's so important that you're getting the right message to the right people. I mean, I love some of the lookalike audiences that you can create, because actually, even with quite a small website audience, that can really scale beautifully. And I love the fact that you can set ROI targets within Performance Max campaigns. You just have to be careful not to get too greedy and set them too tight, because if you do, the algorithm goes, don't know how to do that. You want the moon on a stick?
Yeah, because it doesn't, because it won't have enough data to learn from. I mean, what I've seen is Performance Max, you need to leave them running for a while, because they do learn and do get better. I've seen our performance over like 3, 4, 5 months really start to pick up, which is interesting. To your point, I was at Inbound, I mentioned it a few times, and there was a talk from Google, and they were talking about building robust measurement models going forwards. And the bottom line is, what they're saying is they just don't have the data. So they're using artificial intelligence to bridge the gaps. So the example they gave, which was a really nice one, which kind of got my head around it, is they put a sentence, or a paragraph up on the screen. And they said, right, you can all read that. I'm like, yeah, of course. He said, well, you've got all the data. Okay, right, take all the vowels out of it. So they took all the vowels and put the same thing up. And you're looking at it going, oh, if you give me 5 minutes, I'll be able to work out what it says. And you sit there going, oh, that must be this, must be that. They're saying that's what we're having to do now. So we can use the signals or this machine learning stuff to look at what data we have got, and we can fill in the gaps pretty accurately. In a few cases, we're going to get it wrong because there's a couple of different options. So that's what they're having to do. So I think you're trying to give the algorithm as many opportunities as possible to really understand things. So that's a kind of starting point. So then this using standard reports piece, right? So what do I mean by this? You go into a GA4 report, and I say, what are my most popular pages? And I go, well, that's one. I want to look at that one individually. So I click on it. Nothing happens. It's not clickable. You can't drill into these reports. There's one or two you can now, oddly, but you can't on a lot of them. It's just like, how am I going to isolate that particular page? So just a quick tip. You go in, you've got the search at the top. Put the search phrase in that page is titled, and you'll isolate that page. And then you can add secondary dimensions. So just to clarify, we've mentioned this before. Basically, any table that you get in GA4, the left-hand side is the dimension, and the words are the values of that dimension. I mean, you switched me on to all kind of getting my head around this in the first place, but essentially, it might be your default channel grouping, organic search, direct traffic, all that kind of stuff. Those are the values, and then you've got your kind of metrics, the numbers on the other side. But you can have primary and secondary dimensions. So you can have, I've got my primary, which is my default channel groupings, and then I might go source medium. And I can see, it was organic search, but it was Google, or it was Baidu, or it was Yahoo. So that's the way to manipulate those basic reports, is filter them and then add secondary dimensions. And that just gives you a bit more insight into what's going on. Not immediately obvious.
Just annoying unless you've saved them.
Right.
With sensible naming conventions, so you can find them again. So one of my pet hates is, I used to love to go into my all traffic reports and see how do people get to us. And then I'd love to drill into organic, or I'd love to drill into affiliates, or I'd love to drill into pay-per-click, and just see specifically on those channels how over time has that like traffic sculpted itself. You just can't do that unless you've set it up. But it can be done.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, well, let's just jump ahead to something as well. So what you can also do is you can edit those standard reports, okay? And there's a top right, you've got the edit button. You go and edit it. You can do things like add a filter. You can go through, add secondary dimensions. You can change everything on the page. On the right-hand side, it will give you the dimensions and metrics that you can change. And here's the dangerous bit. And then you can hit save, okay? And if you're not careful, you'll just save over the standard report. And that standard report is now forever changed for anyone that goes into the analytics. And you've probably seen this, Louise, when I go in and I'm forever changing the names of things. They're changing the back when I'm doing a training course. So anyway, so don't do that. What you've got is you save it under a new name, and then it just disappears. And you're like, well, where's it gone? When you go to the reports in GA4, down the bottom, there is a button that says library. Underneath library are all of your menu options. And each of the menu groupings is built in something called a collection. Now, this confused the heck out of me at the beginning. So you've got these collections, and I said, well, I've got 4 in the menu, and there's 8 here. What on earth is going on? They can be published and unpublished. So you can make them live and make them not live, basically. So what you'll have is your collections. You can edit a collection, and when you edit a collection, you can decide which reports go into it, and it will basically give you all the standard reports, but any ones that you've custom built. So then you can put them into your collection. So you completely can change the menus to be anything you want them to be.
When you're working as a consultant, this will confuse the hell out of you because every
Everyone's
Google,
different.
everything is different. It's like, well, where's that been moved? Because anything can be put anywhere.
My favourite one is doing a live session, either normally online, but like face to face. So you're doing it and you're going, here's the, okay, this is different. And Google have done this a few times. They've moved the admin button twice now. So they had an extra admin button that disappeared, and then they move it. Yeah, it does throw you a little bit when you're doing stuff
It's a
live.
message from me. Leave
It's
it
still
alone, Google.
Yeah,
Leave
It's still a
it
bit of a
alone.
work in progress as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
they are adding things and changing things quite a lot. The other thing I was going to get to as well is that you used to have something called segments within Universal Analytics, and it's now basically comparisons. You can only have 4 of them running at a time, but you could go into your report and it's showing you all your traffic. And then you go, I want to add a comparison, and that comparison is like, I want to look at mobile traffic. And then it will show you all your reports for all traffic and then just for mobile or people from a certain location. So you can do that as well. And that makes it a little bit easier to isolate a particular source of traffic. Now, the one thing that's really missing from GA4 is the campaigns report. And the campaigns report in Universal Analytics was the one that said anything you put tracking code onto, here is it reported. So what you can do is there's 2 ways or 2 or 3 ways really of doing this. One, you go to comparisons and you go through and you select campaign and then you go exact value and it will give you a list of all the campaigns you've run. And then you can isolate out that traffic. So comparisons is one way to do it. The other way that you can do it is you can go right through and edit a standard report and you can add a filter on the right-hand side and you just go through and say only traffic from this particular campaign, or you go in and build a custom report. And let's talk about custom reports now as well. So
Tell us about custom reports now.
but it's on Explore. And it isn't exploration because
It's a journey.
yeah, it is, right? Because it's not immediate. They're built in such a way, some of the templates, that you look at them and go, I've got no idea how this is useful. So as standard, you've got free form. And the first, and we've mentioned this briefly before, but I thought it's worth mentioning, is that you've got basically your main canvas where your reports are going to show up. And then you've got these 2 panels. The left panel is the stuff that you're going to bring in that you might use. But it doesn't mean you have to use it or it's showing up on your report. It's kind of the palette that you can paint from as well. I think you had a Bob the Builder analogy.
Bob the Builder analogy.
Let's not go there again.
No.
But it's basically the tools that you turn up with
Yeah.
that you might potentially want to use.
It's all the gear that you have on your building site you want to build with.
Yeah, that's it, right? So, and then you drag that into the next panel and that's what shows up, okay? The fundamental things, that's the free form, quite easy for building tables and things like that. But at the top, you've got a drop down and all the templates are just based on that type in there. So you've got like free form, you've got funnels, you've got user explorer, journey explorer, all those kind of things as well. So free form, I get it. I'm dragging stuff in and I want to look at events that have been triggered on certain pages, all those kind of things as well. The funnel one blew my mind, first of all, because I opened the funnel up and I'm thinking, nice, a funnel down to a particular point. And it's basically got 3 bars at all 100% and no one dropped out of anything. And I was like, what? Don't get this at all. And it was saying people first arriving. Okay. So people starting a session, people viewing a page. Well, if you arrive, you start a session and you look at a page. So it's like they're all going to be 100%. So what you have to do with these templates is there's a button that you go in and it says a little tiny thing, edit steps. Really, really powerful. So you go and edit the steps and you go, the first one is a session start. Brilliant. It's someone arriving on my website. That's what I want. And then what you want to do is edit the next ones to say it's a page view. Yeah. But which page? So you've probably got some sort of funnel process that you go through. Like you get to the sign up page, then you fill in your registration, then it's your credit card, then it's you trigger an event. You need to go through and set those. And you need to edit the page names of each of them as well. So it's set up. The one thing that can throw you is it's set up for apps and for websites. So it'll talk about pages and screens. Screens is for apps, pages is for websites.
If only Google one of the largest companies in the world, had actually bothered to create the video learning resources that they used to have for Universal Analytics before they switched Universal Analytics off. If only they'd done that.
I think they're getting there with it now. I mean, what I would
They're
say
in a bit of a rush, weren't they,
Yeah.
to launch this?
Yeah, they had to launch it in a rush because basically they've been deemed illegal in 2 EU countries, the way they were collecting data, and they didn't have that third-party data anymore. So suddenly they had to move forward with this from that point of view. And I think that's what's kind of forced it. They were kind of clear in this presentation as well that everyone was kind of moaning and saying, well, we're having to compete with AI now. You know, as marketers, we're competing with AI. And they were like, no. You're competing with marketers that are utilizing AI effectively, which is actually a very good point, which is that actually we have to take advantage of some of these things, because if we don't, we're going to be outgunned by other people that are taking advantage of them and kind of helping with this as well.
I've got a beef about this, though, because I'm a bit fed up with everybody banging on about algorithms and AI, right? Let's not get too far down that journey, because all an algorithm is a recipe.
Yep.
And I wish people would start calling it that, because with recipes, everyone gets that. Like, you have some ingredients and you have some instructions. And that's all an algorithm does. And they're making some really great recipes that do some really clever stuff, and there's a lot of power behind it. But it is just that, right?
Yeah, but the problem is...
everybody is slapping the word AI and algorithm onto just about everything at the moment. And we all convince ourselves that this is this highfalutin, really high-powered magic of the new age. And it's not. It's still just a recipe. It's still just a set of rules that things follow. Yeah,
but the problem is you're using a recipe that you don't know the recipe. Right, that's really what's going on here.
Transparency, isn't it?
Yeah, because the recipe's there, you just don't know it, and they change the recipe all the time. So this is where the problem is, I guess. So I think to give yourself the best opportunity, you need to utilize all these kind of things
definitely.
as well.
Yeah.
But I also think that I actually prefer I'm going to say this now. I prefer GA4 to Universal Analytics now. I know. So because actually, it's made me think, like, I don't need all those reports.
No.
What do I actually want to know? I want to know these 3 or 4 things. Right, I'm just going to customize reports if it tells me that, and I can then dip in really, really quickly to do it. I do find it strange that things like campaign reports aren't there as standard, because that's universally what we want people to do. There's also some signals, the way Google's gone with this, in that the attribution modeling is called advertising, right? And it's like, what, you're attributing your value to your Google advertising. And then you go to the settings. This blows my mind. So it's, do you want to look at all the steps in your attribution modeling? You're like, yeah. Or do you just want to look at the Google steps? Like, wait a minute, that's a bit obvious what you're saying there. Are you just trying to and that's not really attribution modeling, isn't it? That's biased attribution modeling. We just want to look at the Google stuff and work out where I should spend my money with Google. Which Google product should I focus on? So
nice try, though.
Yeah, exactly.
But they do provide it for free, so you've got to give them something.
They do, and I think the thing is, Google are always going to get a hard time from everyone because we are so reliant on them, because they do provide the best tools. The reason that we use Google search is it's the best search. So we're kind of making a pop, but the reality is I really like GA4 now, and I think that it does work really well.
In all seriousness, no, they really haven't worked hard enough on teaching people how to use this. No, they just haven't.
Yeah, but we're a training company. That suits me.
I know. Google, get in touch. We could help. Yeah.
On that note, we have a GA4 course.
That's a great point. We have got a GA4 masterclass coming 22nd of November.
Yeah.
You are so smooth.
targetinternet.com/GA4. You can sign up. It's been really popular. It's a half-day course. £100.
Yeah.
Low cost as well. Sign up for that if you're interested. So within that explore, bear in mind that there are a load of templates, but they won't immediately make sense. So you need to play around with them a little bit as well. The often missed features, and probably the one that's really worth looking at, is when you go in and you look at the kind of journey explorer, how people are taking a path through your website. It starts off and it says session start events, and you're like, what? Doesn't tell me anything. Change it to the page name. So the session is like, what pages they look at? Oh, great. Where did they go next? Where did they go next? The bit that you miss is there's a start again, a refresh button, and it will say, do you want to start on a particular page, or do you want to start on an endpoint? Now that's where it suddenly goes, oh yeah, okay. I want to look at my purchase or my lead generation event. How did people get there? What's the journey they took through to conversion? Oh, suddenly I'm starting to untangle some interesting insights.
Great to cut through on that.
Yeah. So I think the templates aren't immediately obvious, but have a little play around with them and make sure you think about it from a point of view of, this is what I could drag in. This is what I have dragged in. Here is my actual canvas that I'm using, but along the top, there's some options of refreshing and things like that as well. And quite often they're pulling in segments of the audience that won't be relevant to you. So they'll go through and say, oh, it's a US audience. And you've got no data for this. Well, that's because you maybe haven't got a big US audience or something else like that as well. So have a play around with those as well. Just don't save over the standard reports. It's very, very easy to do. And if you want to get back to the previous version, you've got to try and find the previous version and replace it, and it all becomes a bit of a headache as well. Try and have a naming convention for how, when you're creating new reports, what's the naming convention you're going to use across your organization. Otherwise, you end up with a real messy set of kind of data in there as well.
You can get back to the originals in the library.
Yeah.
Somebody's really messed it up.
Yeah, you can. The problem is you don't necessarily know on first inspection which ones have been edited and which ones haven't, and what's been changed.
You just need to make a trip to the library regularly.
Yeah, and just go through and have a look at it and just make sure that you've got those right reports. Also, speaking to Google, they're going to be adding new things into the library. So if someone's got something that you haven't got, have a look in there and you'll be able to see actually, is it in there and can I add it in? So Search Console, if you haven't got the Search Console reports, it will be in the library. So go through and take a look at that. So as ever, all of those links will be in the show notes, targetinternet.com/podcast. And we will speak to you again soon, I'm sure, about GA4 again. But tell us your experiences and how you're getting on with it as well.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.